Hey everybody, and welcome to the 41st episode of the Foundation First Fitness Show with Bob Echo. And today we are fortunate that the Hartford Wolfpack were in town this week playing the Laval Rocket, and a good friend of mine, Mark Cesari, dropped by, was able to stop in for a quick talk so we could pick his brain today and get some interesting stuff on some really interesting things that he does, and basically just pick his brain and get his mentality and figure out what his philosophy is and all that kind of stuff, right? So I'm not going to talk too much more, but I'm going to let Mark kind of take over and give us a little bit of an insight on what he does and who he is and everything about him. Go for it.
Thanks, Bobby. Always great time to be able to sit down, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. Fortunately, we're in town this couple of nights, actually, so it's kind of nice. But yeah, I'm the strength conditioning coach with the Hartford Wolfpack. I've had that title now for 8 years.
It's been 8 years already?
It's been 8 years.
That's crazy. I want to say this before, I don't mean to interrupt, but I still remember the first day. Like, I remember when you called me and told me, and it's crazy that that's actually been 8 years.
Yeah, first thing I said is, hey, you want to come help out with camp? Yeah, it's been 8 years, yeah.
That's crazy. So outside of that, what do you do with the team exactly? You're strength conditioning coach. What are you in charge of?
Pretty much everything on a whole spectrum of physical fitness. So I'm in charge of taking care of every individual athlete's strength conditioning program. I help our nutritionists design and mostly implement their nutrition stuff. But the mostly is the prevention of injury, the rehabilitation of injury. As you know, I'm also an athletic therapist, so that title kind of helps me on both sides, and their day in, day out conditioning, preparation for games, recovery from games.
Could you quickly give us a rundown of how you got to the NHL, like the American, pro hockey? How did you get there?
Yeah, I went to school here at Concordia, got my bachelor's degree in athletic therapy. Right away decided I needed more. Went to school in Arizona, a place called the Arizona School of Health Sciences, got a master's in athletic training, certified as an athletic trainer, certified as a strength conditioning specialist, and worked with the Arizona State football team as a graduate assistant athletic therapist, which was, just kind of surreal.
Experience,
yeah. Yeah, you're working big time D1 schools, 75,000 people at games. Obviously a little different than my experience here at Concordia working with the football team. And that just kind of, it opened a lot of doors for me. I decided that football wasn't for me. I missed hockey. It was during the first lockout back in 2005. So I got an opportunity to work college hockey. And it allowed me to use my athletic therapy degree, but also my strength conditioning, which is kind of really what my passion started to become slowly. And so I worked as a dual role guy, which is, kind of common back then in the college field. But I did all the athletic training and all the strength conditioning for a D1 hockey school in Rochester, Rochester Institute of Technology, the Tigers. Spent 3 years there. From that opportunity, that's when I really got into hockey. I started attracting local kids to work out at my facility in the summers, and slowly the pros in the area started hearing who I was, and I was fortunate enough that I connected with a couple of really important people. They brought in some clients for me. Got with guys like Brian Giunta and Ryan Callahan, who really, they really, I think, slingshotted my career. And before you know it, I found myself in front of a couple of big names in New York, and Ryan Callahan was the captain, and he kind of helped me get into there, and that's how I ended up in Hartford.
That's unreal.
Yeah.
So how does what is exactly your philosophy, and how does that fit into the hockey world?
I think I'm fortunate as being a dual certified strength conditioning coach. There's not a lot out there, but I really feel like it fits the hockey bill more than most sports. I go back to my education, and I take an educational approach to my philosophy, and that's the basics. Two things that never lie: biomechanics and anatomy. It's the only things that hold true. So my whole philosophy is designed around the anatomy of the body and how we can protect the body and build a foundation and slowly increase and teach how to get those first three steps. But essentially is, if we can stabilize the pelvis at a very simple level, if we can stabilize the pelvis, everything else we do with our athletes is going to be that much more efficient and you talk about fluidity and you talk about movement patterns and moving well and moving correctly, that all comes from stabilizing that pelvis. Mm-hmm. So if we can stabilize that pelvis and put a player on the ice who's in a little more, controlled core aspect, if you want to call it, I'm going to give that athlete the best opportunity to be as successful as possible on the ice.
Mm-hmm. And I think that fits really well, because I think I learned a lot of that from you, and I think that really affected a lot of the stuff that I was doing. A lot of basically my philosophy kind of stemmed a lot from your philosophy. It's pretty much the same thing. I think we really just speak the same language, and sometimes, as much as sometimes we don't do the same exercises, it really comes down to, what you were talking about, stabilizing that pelvis.
And a lot of, I want to make something clear, because I actually read I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but I read something today on Instagram, and it was
Please don't tell me it was my post.
No, it was we got to talk, Bobby. It was a rehab science PT guy. Okay. Can't remember his handle. I saw him a couple of weeks ago. He said something that intrigued me, so I followed him. Unfortunately, right after this post, I unfollowed him. But he basically talked about that individualizing a muscle control is a thought of the 90s, and that it's way out of whack, and that you can't think that controlling your core musculature will help in back pain and will directly help in stabilizing the spine. And I agree. There is no research that's going to show by activating your TVA, you're stabilizing the spine. But that's how I know when someone really truly understands the body and someone who just thinks they understand the body. Mm-hmm. Because they're missing the whole point. Activating the TVA isn't so that someone doesn't have back pain directly, but indirectly, by activating that TVA, now my hamstrings can do the job. Yeah. Once my hamstrings can do the job, now my glute medius can maybe fire instead of that TFL, take some pressure off my hip flexors, take some pressure off my groin. Now where's my back pain? Because now I'm walking around with a conscious TVA, but all my other muscles are doing what they're supposed to be doing at a mechanical advantage, and they're no longer in that disadvantaged or unactivated state, if you wish.
Right. So basically, activate the TVA, which is the transverse abdominis, and allow the cascade effect to clean up your movement, improve your movement, and more than likely reduce a lot of the pain you're dealing with.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Exactly.
What would you tell what would you give as 3 tips to anyone out there listening? Someone that's an everyday person going to the gym, wants to compete, wants to train, whether it's for a marathon, triathlon, any type of event like that. What would you give as 3 tips that you think that kind of fit that mold of what they should be doing to improve in their sport?
Well, first one is scale it back. Whatever you're doing, simplify it. Because chances are, it's way too advanced for what you should be doing. Simplify your movement patterns. Bring it back to the basics. The thing I learned the most is when I worked with an elderly population. I had an opportunity to do a lot of rehabilitation with a clinic in the area, and I learned that if someone is so basic to the point where they can't control their musculature, there's something going on. Mm-hmm. And what happens is that if you're not in pain, you don't know you're not doing this. You don't understand that you're not doing this.
There's no warning signs.
There's no warning signs until that compensation that you build up turns into a dysfunction, and then dysfunction turns into an injury or pain, right? So if you just simplify everything, tone it back, take the weights away, and clean up your movement, I think that's the first thing, first and foremost. Because if you're talking about a marathon runner and you're talking about running fluidity, I should say, you really need to understand that everything we do is a compensation. Everything we do is a compensation if we are not in a good state. I got a 2-year-old son, as you know, and
he literally did not talk to me for the 3 days I was down there. The last night spent literally an hour running around the house.
He's obsessed now. But you saw him, right?
Yeah.
Hey, sit into a squat. He sits perfect.
No problem.
Throw him a ball. He puts that ball right up over his head.
Easy.
No, there's no tension in his body. There's no compensation yet. He moves the way we're supposed to be moving. Mm-hmm. And I think that we lose that.
Right.
We lose that. If I ask 99% of people how to squat, they do not know how to squat. So take the bar off, Let's learn how to squat. Let's check our ego at the door. And most people at the gym right now are weekend warriors, people trying to do the right thing. They're going in there, they're getting some stuff done, they feel good about themselves, and then here I come and say, whoa, pump the brakes, let's take it back a notch, let's see how you really move. And it's not to make someone feel bad about themselves, it's to make someone realize that even though they're that weekend warrior, even though they have a six-pack, even though they can run a marathon, they're still...
probably is something that's going on.
They're still compensating.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that they realize that so that they can take the proper steps moving forward.
Perfect.
I think that's the first and foremost. The next thing is to find help. And the reason I say find help is because there are very few people in this field that are doing the right thing for their clients. And it's sad to say, but people like yourself who are able to take their clients in one-on-one and not necessarily in a huge group setting are you're providing your clients with something that not many people can. You're breaking down their body, you're showing them where their compensations are, and you build them through that. Mm-hmm. That's challenging to find. I get calls all the time, in the Hartford area. Hey, can you train me? Sorry, I really don't train anybody outside of hockey or outside of the team, I should say. And they ask me for a recommendation. And it's really hard to give them a recommendation because there's not too many people that in my mind are breaking down the body correctly. And instead of breaking it down, it's let's build. Hey, I'm all for building, but you have to build that foundation first before you can build anything on top of it. So if we can get that foundation, right? And we always talk about foundation. Yeah. Back to the Concordia days. If you do not have a foundation, what are you building upon? Now, average Joe, I don't care how much you know or what you were taught, you cannot break it down like one of us. More importantly, if I need help, I need you to break me down. I can't see all my compensations. I need someone with a trained eye. So I think the second most important thing is find someone that you can trust, that you know is going to help you reach your goals, not just your performance goals, but your movement and your life goals. Because I get the question all the time, but I'm at a box gym. It's all I can afford. How are the personal trainers there? I said, listen, I don't know. I've never worked at that gym. However, my thought process for you is find the person that has a little bit of an education there. Work with them, listen to them, ask them questions. Don't just find someone you're like, hey, that guy's got a good body. I want to look like that. He'll give you the best program to look like that for him. This is what he did to look like this.
But it doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
It doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So, I consider myself very fortunate to work with high-level athletes. And you're doing the same thing here in Montreal. And I think it's a rare thing. I think it's a rare thing that should be open to the general population. And I know you're fortunate enough or people in Montreal are fortunate enough to contact you to work with these injuries and to build that foundation. So I think that's number two.
Appreciate that.
I think that's number two. Finding someone you can trust. And the third one, you just got. This is gonna sound weird, but you got to go out and do it. I've done this now. I was certified in 2004. So I'm 14 years now as a certified strength conditioning specialist. And I take a lot of pride in that. Mm-hmm. My wife won't train with me. Okay? She will not train. My wife trains at Orange Theory. I'm not trying to plug them, but that's where she trains. Yeah. And you know what? I love it. Because I gave my wife 3 exercises. And I said, you have to do these every single time you work out.
And that's it.
Did she do them? Nope. Right? You got to go out and do it. If you have the best information given to you, if you don't put it into practice, it's useless. I tell people this all the time. I can write the best workout in the world, but if you don't do it, it might as well have just been the worst workout in the world. What difference does it make? Mm-hmm. It's all up to the person to go out and take onus on themselves. This is going to help me. This is going to make me a better athlete or better weekend warrior or just a better person in general walking around.
That's For those of you who know me, you know that I'm always the one talking, and Mark knows me probably in this field better than anyone, way better than anyone, and Mark's used to this. I usually get very quiet when I'm actually really interested in this stuff, so he kind of knew what was going on. I think that's why he kept pushing it, because I was just sitting there crossed arms, just like, oh God, all right, okay. And I'm trying to I was trying so hard not to take notes on the side. So the three things, take a step back, find someone that can really help you out. And number three, put that advice to good use. Go out and do it. Honestly, it's great having someone like Mark in here, because I think it really compounds a lot of the stuff that I keep preaching to everyone out there listening and everyone else watching on YouTube. It really does come down to the foundation, and it really comes down to building that properly, making sure that you're moving properly so that you are setting yourself up for success down the road. Our brains are almost pre-wired to think we need success right away. What's going to get us there as fast as we possibly can, not what's going to keep us there the longest. So if we switch our mentality, then everything else will eventually just play itself out, So.
And I see it all the time.
Yeah.
I see it all the time with my young athletes, young players who are just hungry to get to the NHL. It takes time. It takes time, even in their development. It takes time. So, bet on yourself, develop yourself, and that's going to make a huge difference. You don't have to be a professional athlete to take pride in your body and to take pride in how you move. I play with my son now, and I find myself getting into positions on the floor with him, this, that, the other thing. I said, thank God that I can move the way I do, because if not, I don't know how I would get on the floor with him. Mm-hmm. And horse play around with him and have, throw a ball to him or whatever. I can only imagine how many people struggle with that. And, these are, I think, three things that can really help you, get there.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for coming in today. I mean, there's so much more I really think we need to talk about. And I know that, I'm pretty confident that I'm going to be pestering you to stick around for another episode if you can. If not, we definitely will be getting him on sooner rather than later, probably through Skype or something like that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I really appreciate you coming in again, and it's always great having you here. So for those of you out there, if you like what you heard today, please hit subscribe, hit like, let me know what you guys think. Leave a little comment. If you have a question for either myself or Mark, leave it in the comments and we will definitely get that answered for you. And until the next time, keep building that foundation.